As the coronavirus outbreak continues to spread, many people are left to wonder, where are the hotspots? And while some local governments have published detailed maps of confirmed cases down to the zip code or neighborhood, Oregon has not. This lack of specific data makes it difficult to assess which communities are being hardest hit, information that could help first responders and healthcare workers, explained Chunhuei Chi, director of the Center for Global Health at Oregon State University.
When they see patients from a certain zip code, certain area, they will be take more precautions.
For example, residents in Los Angeles can look on a website to find out how many confirmed coronavirus cases there are in their neighborhood. Officials in South Carolina release figures by zip code. And even in hard-hit King County, Washington, there are heat maps broken down by zip code. In contrast, Oregon simply provides total cases by county. The challenge is that doesn't tell you much. In sprawling Multnomah County, there are 45 confirmed cases. We don't know if those are isolated to one particular neighborhood or spread across the county. It's useful information in planning and allocating resources.
The information, in my opinion, will be more valuable for the healthcare provider than for the general public.
She warns specific data could be misinterpreted by the public. Certain people, groups, or neighborhoods might be unfairly stigmatized.
People begin to be suspicious who in our neighborhood are infected.
And these maps could give some people a false sense of security because they don't see cases in their neighborhood. That's especially true with coronavirus because those who are infected don't always show symptoms and aren't always tested. So there's a chance they wouldn't show up on the map. Kyle Aboshi, KGW News.
Now, of course,